Hello, good morning, and welcome to day 7 of the GBDURO. It is just after 8 o'clock in the morning, and I am very pleased to have a guest that I don't know if any of you will recognize the face, but you probably recognize the name at the bottom of that video screen there. We've got Henry Compson, who was our race leader for the first half of the race, and fairly tragic, disappointing, sad scratch decision, which we're going to get to hear about a little bit later. Prior to that absolutely commanding performance that led the first half of the race, Henry was a TCR finisher, finished 32nd place in 2022, which I think is TCR number 7. And 32nd place doesn't sound like a lot in a field of 23 riders, but that is kind of touching the edge of maybe the pros at TCR. So incredible result there. 2023 was 3rd in the Transatlantic Way race and has done a number of other smaller races as well. Like I said, was our race leader with a real commanding lead until an injury forced him to scratch just here, just under the halfway point. Have we got our kilometer markers there? Yeah, that would be the halfway point. So looks like Dan O'Connor's going to hit the halfway point fairly shortly this morning. Henry was a bit shy, and you can see how big that lead was because Keith still hasn't overtaken him. But it looks like it's coming fairly shortly. Good morning, Henry. Welcome. Thank you for taking the time. And how are you?
Yeah, good morning. Thanks, Alex. Happy to be on here, and thanks again, or thanks rather, for the really kind introduction. Yeah, I'm feeling all right. I've had 3 nights sleep now since I scratched, so I'm starting to feel very much feeling a lot better and more relaxed than I had. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll get into sort of like what I've been up to since. But yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just really enjoying keeping up with the race. Actually, it's a lot easier to sort of follow what's going on properly when you're not actually in the middle of it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Trying to keep up with any other stories in the race when you're,
mm,
I think, especially at the lead. I
yeah,
was mid-pack and I found I couldn't really keep up with stuff. So,
yeah. I think it's like it takes a certain type of person to like be able to sort of like want to race it and that still take time mentally to go like, okay, I will respond to stuff on WhatsApp because it's
right.
always that worry about how fast you're moving, what you're spending time doing, and actually it doesn't take that much time, but I'm not very good at it. So yeah.
Yeah. Or it takes, I think for me, it takes headspace, right?
Yeah, I
It's
think that's a
about,
really
it's
good way of
about
putting it.
the way you have to redirect your focus from what you
Mm,
are doing to being able to spend 12 seconds to respond to a WhatsApp message.
yep.
And then by the time you get your head back into, I don't know, I've got ADHD. So by the time I get my head back into it, I will have shed more time than I needed.
Yeah, no, I think like, and obviously the WhatsApp, we're talking about sort of WhatsApp group that
Yeah.
we're both part of, and that's sort of like what the riders are using and sharing lots of these images, and how I share that I scratch with them, for example. But like, this also applies to like I've got lots of friends and family in like a specific WhatsApp group for following my races, and it's really nice to read it. But like, I have to really limit when I read it, and also when I respond to things, because again, it's like that mental load that you need to take. So like the idea of, you can only, you have to launch yourself up and then back down again on this mental path. And so
Yeah.
like not being able to respond to it does feel a bit occasion like, oh, am I ignoring them? But yeah, if you want to do what you want to do when you're sort of riding ultras, you've got to sort of be a bit strict with yourself.
Yes. There is a lot of strictness required,
Mm,
as well as we've discussed with some of the others, an ability to sort of forgive yourself and be flexible and go with the flow, right?
mm.
It's all
Indeed.
about
Yeah.
balancing that. Doing our morning check-in and looking at where our riders are, I
Mm.
think this is the first time in a few days that I've had the opportunity to report any kind of changes. We see Tom did sleep last night, but has really been pushing the pace. I think was coming into calendar when I did my evening update, so would have been just about there. I'm not sure where he slept, but as of the time I was getting ready to prep this, it looked like he was sitting at the Loch Lyon post office, which for the uninitiated is not actually a post office anymore. It's now a cafe. I'm guessing it's not open yet, so he'll have had to clip past it and get himself onto one of the tougher climbs of that section of the route. He's got
Yeah. So
go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think I, I think I had a look this morning that he like stopped in a hotel or like was in
Okay.
Killin, which I
Oh,
think
in Cullen,
like
yeah,
yeah, which to be honest, considering the pace you're setting, if he gave himself a full night's sleep, was probably a really
yeah,
smart idea.
yeah. If he's, I think if you're gonna try to really push yourself here, getting a few nights in a hotel is probably gonna be really helpful, right? Even just a clean kit or whatever. And we've seen a lot of the riders using that. Reese is coming into the Central Belt. I have no idea if he's going to make another go at a bicycle shop today. I didn't fully share the exact screenshot of his message about his brakes last night, but he's got some brake issues. And we are not sure whether he's going to have another go at fixing them or just try to keep making do. I'm not sure if you had any opportunity to speak to him about any of that by the time it
Mm,
happened.
Is I'm trying to remember since I was reading back on the group. He's having like front brake problems, isn't he? Which
Yeah,
always sounds quite terrifying on the route that's we're
I
doing.
know.
Yeah,
I know. It sounds
um,
like he's maybe doing a little scoot down some of the descents.
yeah.
So
Hey,
is
he's doing all right so
potentially
far.
capable of a faster pace than he's currently setting. Here's our surprise is Timo's moved into third, although for some reason that's still showing fifth. I think because Sam and Todd are off course. So it was after we signed off yesterday, Jess said to me, keep an eye on Timo because I think he's sneaky. I think he's not really stopping at night. He's really making incredible pace. And let's watch and see if he starts to overtake some people. So for the past few days, Rich has been sitting pretty comfortably in third place with a gap of about this much space to the next riders. Well, I guess Rich has been neck and neck with Todd and Sam, our pairs. And then it's been about this much space back to Timo and Peter Jan have been sitting in similar places to each other. But looks like last night Timo pushed on, don't know if he slept at all, certainly put a lot of space in between him and Peter Jan and also made a significant overtake on Rich here, who is just coming out of, where are we? That's the second big climb in the southern uplands, so has not yet gone up and over into the more bordery stuff. It's Timo's coming up on the big climb to the radar. You have any encounters with Timo, seeing that coming?
Um, to be honest, not really. I think it's
You
really
didn't really
impressive
see
to
anybody past day one, did you?
no. Like from day two when I went past Tom, like I didn't see
Right,
anyone apart from supporters. But I guess it's sort of like for me, it's the ability to keep going, like
right.
and doing overnighters when you feel perfectly fine. I'm sure he stopped for like a power nap at some point. If he didn't, like fair play to him.
Yeah,
But yeah, like just I guess it's sort of like if he's feeling good and he's like, you know what, I can make a bit of a move right now. Like it's just showing a
yeah.
really like nice like competitive spirit to the whole thing.
It's
Yeah, I
great.
mean
It's
obviously
keeping it.
there's still a long way to go. Like it's
Yeah.
quite a risky strategy to sort of burn like to not take a night's sleep now when you're still probably what like 4 days away from finish, like
What has he
maybe.
got?
Yeah,
Next checkpoint, 738
yeah,
Ks.
yeah,
So, yeah, there's still an ultra race in front of him,
yeah.
even if he was starting right now. The other big news of the night is Todd and Sam. We saw some indication in my evening update yesterday that they were struggling with a sheared off valve. Turned out that was also connected to a number of other punctures, and this one isn't showing up so clearly in my image here, but the update from this morning is that actually that rim is cracked. They're a little bit concerned that this could be a game over situation. Say they're checking in to a local town, so we see them moving off course into Newcastleton. I think the best thing I could say about Newcastleton is it is the site of one of the Seven Stains mountain bike parks. So there's potentially some hope of some more cycling specific support there from maybe local residents, if not from a shop, but I can't personally picture a shop there. I've also never attempted to stop. I'm only ever driving through to get to Kielder. So don't know what's there, but we're wishing them the best.
Yeah, I had a little look on I googled it this morning when I saw where they were heading for, and like the map does not show anything of any immediate
Okay.
obvious use. Like this would the Kilda center itself, like would stuff in Kilda is have that sort of stuff. I know it's back on track, but sort of I was wondering if like if they couldn't get stuff in Newcastleton, what the other options might be.
Yeah, so Reese actually is the person we want to talk to about that. He
Mm,
took the detour to Kielder Cycle Center yesterday, and they were not, obviously, they weren't able to replace major group set components for him, which it sounds like is maybe what's actually needed to get a permanent fix for what he's
yeah,
got going on. They are primarily like bicycle rentals and maybe do some mountain bike kind of servicing.
yeah.
Can't
So
remember
probably not.
exactly. The year I rode, I needed some drivetrain parts that I couldn't find along the route, and eventually ended up phoning ahead to Kielder saying, "Can you get these?" Funnily enough, they said no, but you can order them and have them sent here.
Yeah.
So there I was online ordering my bike parts to send them to some other bike shop, and they were waiting for me in Kielder. And they've got a nice full shop.
Mm,
I had a nice
yeah.
time, nice chat with the mechanic who helped me do the part swap. But my impression was that they don't hold a lot of stock of parts.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, it's kind of out of the way. You're not gonna like the number of people that are
Yeah,
rock up there with a like non-mountain bike going like, I need something to get me to Scotland is quite low.
yeah, they're not going
Yeah,
to do a whole lot of. Uh, yeah, it's not going to make a whole lot of sense to hold some retail stock of wheels or rims. So maybe they would sell someone a rim off of a bike or a secondhand bike or a retired hire bike would potentially be the hopes there, but not sure if that's going to work. Is there anywhere, if they moved their way further down, I guess they're looking at Gretna. I can't picture anything really. Maybe the next best bet would be to get to the train line and hop a train to get some help. Or if they're able to move on a bit, there's a huge kind of mountain bike cycling community in around Peebles, Innerleith, and Traquair. But they've got to tackle a fair chunk of the route to get into that area at this point. That's another couple of climbs. And this one that Timo's, I guess they could skip that one and take the road over to try to get some of that sorted and then turn around and get back. Though I don't know how far off the pace that would put them. So real shame to see that kind of trouble that they're having there. We wish them the best. Hope that's going to work out. What else have we got? Joe's also dealing with some tire issues. Hopefully nothing that's going to plague her too much throughout today, because she's coming into, I think, some of the chunkier, tighter sections of the Pennine Bridleway. What's she through? So she's come in past Malham. This is maybe past the worst of the gates, but starting to get into some of the muddier, chunkier stuff that's going to take her in closer to Great Dunfell. We've got our three men with the letter R names all making their way up Great Dunfell this morning, or in fact, Ross is down the other side coming into Garrigill. Roop is in the big, nasty, awful hike-a-bike section. Henry, I don't know if you've ever had the opportunity to make your way through there.
no, so, like the only thing I know about it is it's one of the two sections in the manual described as please do not do this at night. It's not a good idea. The other one being up by the Craskin,
Oh,
which
yeah.
I have no I don't understand. Sorry, as in I can guess as to why they're quite so they say that. I've never had the opportunity to do it either of them
Yeah.
before. Um, yeah,
Well, I mean, I guess my brief description of this is it is barely a walking path,
yeah, okay.
and it's pretty muddy and boggy, and
Mm,
sometimes it's hard to even see, is this a random deer track or is this what the path is meant to be?
yeah,
It's a
yeah.
lot of pushing and even lifting the bike over obstacles. So it's
So
well,
somehow actually worse than the climbing up on a fully loaded gravel or mountain bike.
yeah, absolutely. I was saying to Lucy a couple days ago that I hadn't properly done my route research, and all I realized was that I had this massive road climb, which I knew about, understood what
Mm,
that was, and that from the other side of that, it was downhill to Garrigill, which was a checkpoint that had a clock stop. So I was thinking that my challenge of the day was over when I got to the top, and it turned out I had another couple hours of
God,
wading through
grim.
muck.
Yeah.
Rob's on his way, just getting ready to hit the bottom of the climb.
Yeah.
We don't know yet if anyone found that dog that Tom was talking about. Not sure if you saw that message. That
Yeah,
may
or
have
the dog
been,
on Pearl. Yeah.
yeah,
Just
may have
sits
been
there all
as you
year
were
round
traveling
waiting
home.
for GB Giro riders.
I know. It may very well. The post kind of looked like it may be a dog that just hangs around in the front garden and is friendly and says hi to everybody that comes past. Mike still making pace, even after stopping to fix other people's bikes yesterday. That was an entertaining post for me. Dan's on his way through. Yeah, this is kind of coming out of the tail end of the worst parts of the Pennine Bridleway. There's still some off-road as you descend, but he's mostly through the hard part. Roman is making good pace with a still not fully healed collarbone, which has been slowing him down all race. Seems like he's doing all right, though we haven't seen or heard from him in a couple of days. And Keith is happily plugging along, just keeping moving. So that's our morning race update. Want to come back to you now, Henry, and see if you can tell us a little bit about your race experience. So you've got experience of being up towards the front of ultra races before,
Yeah.
but I'm not sure that you've ever found yourself leading one. Take us back as early as you want to take us. What was this whole experience like?
So I guess I want to start being like I'm not an off-road rider.
Okay.
I signed up to this like because like I was looking for events to do this year as a bit of a challenge for myself, due to like circumstances involving like having to switch jobs, etc. I didn't sort of like do as much off-roading riding as I wanted to before I actually got into it. So like I knew I physically my training's been going really well, but I've been riding on a road bike until about 6 weeks ago when I finally bought myself a gravel bike. So it was
Okay.
like it was,
So you
so
didn't even have the bike until a
no,
month and a half ago.
no, and like obviously like you can only do what you can do.
Right.
But sort of learning how to ride off road on GB Giro is probably not the what something I'd recommend for anyone, particularly if you're trying to
Yeah.
be competitive, like trying to race it. And I don't think like as in like that's not really a sort of a like I wouldn't necessarily have been able to do anything differently, but it's very much like a what was I thinking? Like in many ways, Alex, I think like when you said the sort of like the not doing the route planning properly for Dunfell, for example, I sort of like to me that was like I was like that's exactly how I entered this race, which was like there's off road, there's on road, there's a mixture of the two, it's fine. But to put in perspective, I'd crashed 3 times within the first like 3 hours of the
Oh,
start, like bouncing
wow.
off like single track, but being
Yeah.
just like I need to calm down a little bit and not treat this
Okay.
like a road ultra where you basically are going out at like racing. Basically, I think like the way most people would consider racing the first day of a road ultra or something where like effort is all that really matters is you're kind of going out at tempo and being like I just need to get as far into the race and get in front of people and settle into like this and burn some
Yeah.
matches while also not going overboard. And I like it
I
was a
guess
bit of
playing
a
a psychological game with your competition to try
yeah,
to put enough space in that they go, nope,
yeah.
I'm not going there.
Yeah, and I think like yeah, obviously people change positions and crashes happen, accidents happen, people crack, people sleep, etc. But it's just as a race goes on, everyone slows down. It becomes so much harder to overtake people.
Uh-huh.
Like everything just like grinds to a slot. Like if you just all move like, and I look obviously it isn't that's not sort of like a like 100% concrete rule, but like you do want to sort of like it's hard to win a race if you're not in the like the top bits at the start, just because like you've like, yeah. But like that being said, like I was having a huge amount of fun, and to be honest, one of my main positives to take away from this is actually like I've become even in a few short days a lot more competent at riding some of the like much more technical sections of UK gravel and off road than like
Okay.
yeah, like, which was fun and like it's in something I'm keen to do a lot more of. Like I'm for those who don't know, I'm based in New Cross Gate in southeast London,
Okay.
about 4 or 5 kilometers from London Bridge. So like the
So
terrain I
you
get
don't
to
have a
practice
lot of
in.
gravel or there's no mountain bike parks there.
No, I mean there's a BMX track, Sonic Park around the corner, which has got some bumpy stuff on it. And there is a lot of options for going off road and like out on the North Downs, etc. But like compared to like, I've never ridden on a mountain bike in the Scottish borders or like done anything like in like off road in Wales, for example. And
Yeah.
yeah, like it's something that I'm keen to do a lot more of, and knew I was, which is one of the reasons I was like, you know what, I'm going to just sign up for this and see what happens. So yeah, like but to go back to I guess the leading from the start, I knew I wanted to be quite competitive, and looking at the start list, I felt pretty comfortable with the idea that sort of like I would be at the top end, and as I wanted to go out hard and just sort of see where I was. Like I just didn't check
Yeah.
the tracker for the whole of the first day. Um, like I only knew like I overtook a couple of people nearest the start, knowing I was near the front.
Okay.
And but only found out I was in first place. I think because someone yelled it from the side of the road. Oh no, it's some guy, some bloke who I didn't catch his name was I think it was in Great Torrington, and I was going up that
Okay.
really steep climb just up
Oh
onto the
yeah,
top,
I broke a
and he,
chain there.
oh God, that must have been grim. Well, that's
Yeah.
quite early on. And yeah, he was just like, "Well done, you're doing really well, you're winning," and I was like, "Oh, great." And like, as in, from that point, I think the whole that first day felt very much just like in my own mode, keep pushing, try to calm these off-road sections, try to learn how to ride them in a way that you both don't waste time by being too slow, but also I was just trying to be kind with myself when I was having to get off my bike and push a bit. Like
Yeah.
I think the biggest learning thing for me was like obviously everyone has their own technical ability to go up and downhill on off road and on. To be fair, there are times when you have to push going up a
Yeah.
tarmac road, right? Particularly later in the race. But sort of
Yeah.
like I
Sometimes it's
think
just a wise decision.
yeah, and I think like getting better at going like I'm in the lead. Most of the other people are probably going to walk this as well. Just walk it. Was
Yeah.
very like something I was just having to like really like you was on that first day really going like just do this, and everything will be fine. Like all you can do now is just keep moving, which is like
Right.
ultimately all you really can do, right? It
Yeah.
like if the basics of riding an ultra are basically just keep moving as much as you can. Don't
Yeah.
overstretch yourself either mentally, physically, or technically, and hope things don't go wrong. And when they do go wrong, try to find ways to be like not let them ruin your day. And so yeah, like I it's something I'd worked really hard on was like trying to make sure I had a good sleeping strategy the first night.
Okay.
Because at tour a couple of years ago, I'd stopped too early, I hadn't slept very well, I effectively had wasted 3 or 4 hours sleeping without sleeping. And so like
Oh yeah.
I had a really good night's sleep on the first night, despite the tracker not picking it up. Found
Okay.
a barn with an abandoned sofa, so actually didn't even need to get my mat out. And I was like, oh, this is perfect. Um, and so the next morning, like, got up and sort of like caught up with Tom, who hadn't slept that night. And I was like, okay,
Right.
cool, great. Like,
Tom
went,
Tom actually told a very similar story to you, saying never sleeps well on the first night of an ultra,
mm,
so it just went through.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And
And
he looks exhausted, and like, dude, I'm so glad he's got decent night's sleep last night.
yeah.
And so like bumping into him and going past him eventually, and then pushing on to Bristol was the last time I saw anyone. But sort of like at that point, obviously I was like, okay, I'm in first place. This feels good. Like, yes, this isn't really my area of expertise, but all I can do is like do one section at a time and like try and build into this and just try and just because ultra is ultimately so much about sort of like fighting your own demons and all the sort of like mental challenges and physical challenges. It's just like one thing at a time, one thing at a time.
Yeah.
Um, so like there was a sense of excitement, I guess. Like I've never had a chance to win a bike race before, and it would have been really nice to have done so. And like it definitely was a motivating factor. I think it's interesting because I heard the interview Tom gave about him not really checking the tracker.
Yeah.
And like for me, it became increased. Like actually, I had to be much more careful about not checking it too often. It got to, like Tom was riding really well behind me, and I think I
Yeah.
was slowly pulling ahead like bits at a time, rather than, like over like day and a half, 2 days before. Like, but it never felt like that. Checking the tracker, it was always like, oh, he's right on my tail. He's right on my tail. He's right on my tail. I need to keep moving. But
I
at
mean,
the
this
same
looked
time,
like a
yeah.
big gap at the time, but in retrospect,
Yeah.
what is that? That's as of Sunday evening. In
Mm.
retrospect, that still looks like right on your tail, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and like there are times where like I think it's interesting because obviously once you've done something, you know what that's coming up. You can sort of like the distance and the timings, like you probably have a better idea of it than of what that actually means than watching on the
Yeah.
screen, because obviously like the point where you get out of the Welsh mountains and I bomb it across to Chester, then all the way through to Manchester, I'm doing 20 20 to 30k an hour average,
Yeah.
somewhere like much higher, and Tom's still struggling through some gnarly sections, and suddenly I've got on like a 100 kilometer gap. And
Yeah. I guess
yeah,
we're
like
talking about
because
just in here.
yeah, there we go. Um, but sort of like I think I was at least using the tracker as a way to go like, okay, he's like use it as a sort of motivational thing to just keep pushing. Like again, like I was in Chester and chose to sort of push onto a travel lodge and sail so on the edge of Manchester on
Okay.
the when was it? The evening before I scratched.
This
Um,
is, what is that? Monday evening.
yeah. Which was just like I think quite a nice motivational thing, which I'm not sure I probably would have had quite the motivation to do if I wasn't in the lead or in a quite
Okay.
competitive
You
race.
would have stopped in Chester.
Probably not, but like sort of like Chester to Sales is actually another like 60k, which and it's
Yeah.
not all on road. Like I thought it all was in typical not really playing the route. And there's an off-road section which was like I was like, oh god, I'm gonna get to Manchester later than I thought because I'm not
Yeah.
doing I'm not just tapping it along.
Don't
Um,
remember any of it being hard, but it is off road enough that you're
yeah,
not cruising at road pace.
yeah, it's sort of like you go through parks where there's like you have to slow down because the navigation, like your Wahoo's not quite, it's not like the map option isn't quite as useful as it would be on a road,
Right.
and it's that sort of stuff, and it's at night, so it's everything slows down anyway, and all you really want to do at night is ride on paths that are easy to follow.
Right.
So it's all that sort of stuff. But yeah, like it's the most I guess felt like I've been racing a race. Tour when I
Okay.
finished third. I just felt like I was doing my own thing a bit more. And not so I didn't, but sort of like this, it felt good. Like I found it much more fun to do it to feel more competitive than I've done the other ultras where I felt where it's been a bit more of just mentally just getting to the line.
Yeah.
I had a really low moment on the second afternoon where
Okay.
I called my girlfriend and I was like, why the hell am I doing this? Well, the typical sort of like wanting to quit and trying to get basically having your partner to like having to sort of like
Yeah.
talk you down. But
Yeah.
actually, from that point onwards, and the sort of like from the sort of second night through and all the third day and like into the morning, I very much felt like in that sort of I guess wanted to race it and enjoying being in the lead. And yes, it was tiring, but actually it gave me motivation to keep going. But yeah, obviously didn't work out. Yeah.
Yeah. So when did you first notice that something was wrong?
So it was
Because I don't know
yeah.
if this is a crash or an overuse injury still.
It's an overuse
Okay.
injury, or it's so as I was feeling a tweak in the back of my right ankle that was getting increasingly worse. Um, so sort of like it's difficult to describe without sort of like having a image up, but sort of it's not sort of like the big tendon at the back, but sort of like tucked into the back of the bone.
Okay.
And I was noticing it particularly on either descend. I descend like I descend with my when I'm descending with one foot down, it's my
And
right
we
foot
can
down
do
mostly. Uh,
ankle,
yeah,
uh, ankle
mm,
ligaments.
yeah,
See if we get an image here.
yeah. Hang on, I can probably give you the. It's posterior. I'm jumping ahead a bit here because I went to see a doctor yesterday. But yeah,
Ah,
when
okay.
it says the sort of like where that arrow is kind of pointing into the ligament, it's not a ligament that's the problem; it's a tendon. But
Oh, okay, got it.
it's sort of in there on the inside, and I was feeling pain that was increasing, doing two things. One was descending, where like whenever my right foot was down, even if it was just on like descending, going left on sort of like normal road descents, it was a bit like, oh god, this is a bit weird. But any off road where it's a bit of like, reverberation, I was like, this is not good. But also the primary one was actually hiker biking and going uphill. But
Okay,
any time I had my I was pushing through my right foot and I guess the calf was effectively moving over, so I was having quite an acute angle on my foot. Like I was like, this is not, and I was shuffling a lot more. And yeah, I've said in my sort of like scratch message, like I'd been using painkillers, and the fact it wasn't going down, like the swelling wasn't really going down. Like I'd woken up on the morning in the travel lodge and I'd struggled to walk because of how
okay,
swollen it was. But I've had that in TCR before on both legs, and to be honest, that swelling went down quite quickly. But it was the fact that it came back up again quite quickly, and it like they felt something different. I struggle with this in part because like I know that if you want to actually be competitive in these kind of races, there are pains you just have to put up with.
Right.
So on TCR, when I like raced it for the first time, sorry, just to have a caveat here. My father is like an orthopedic wrist surgeon of like 50 years, so I have like a very helpful
Okay.
sort of like biomechanical person to call on occasion when I might need to like, am I doing myself actual damage or not? On
Yeah.
TCR, I called him about sort of wrist nerve damage, and he was basically like, I mean, you're fucked. Sorry, pardon my language here. But it will recover. Like that nerves will do
Yeah.
this. So if you can get to the end, you're fine. But like this ligament thing, I gave him a call and he was just like, look, if it's not going down with anti-inflammatories and the pain isn't going away, like there is mechanical stuff in there that's like not like something's going wrong. And
Okay.
so like that, I guess for me was why I made the
Yeah.
call. But sort of it was a pain that was quite severe at times, but other times not as like pure pain to the point of like, oh my God, this is agony. But there was definitely points where I was like, oh God, ow, I need to stop and like stop walking and try and sort it. And so like that was what caused it, which I'm still, I guess, feeling there is like the sense of going, unfortunately, that I have, which is like, did I just quit? Like, like just
Yeah.
um
I,
that
I
it's
can I can't imagine that
yeah.
there's any way you could DNF in the first position of a race and
Yeah.
not feel some of that, right?
Yeah, and like I got the train back down to London that day, and I was sort of like nodding in and out of sleep, and
Okay.
I sort of like I also had a dream of like the fact that the pain was all imaginary, and it's sort of like you were just being pathetic, and you like it's like you just wanted an excuse to quit, right? Which is
Oh
not a good
no.
mental headspace to be in. And I get up, I sort of shake myself awake and put my foot down, and suddenly this jolt of pain just comes all the way through my leg, and I'm just like, Henry, you need to sort of kind of get over yourself. You need to stop beating yourself up here. But sort of like this is your
Yeah.
body going like there was something legitimately wrong. Like that, like there's a reason. Like it can be both that you wanted to quit, but also that you weren't going to quit, and
Right.
that your body is forcing you to say you have to like look after yourself. And so yeah, like that was I guess my experience and why I ended up having to pull out. It was never an easy one. It was but what's both a lovely and quite a sad moment for me was I was sitting on this bench for about an hour, like contemplating what to do and waiting to get a chance to have a chat with my dad, check things over. But also, I think his name's Lee. I'm sorry if I got his name wrong, but he's a friend of Rob's. And I just handed my scratch notice in and was about to head off. And this guy came along and was
Okay.
like, "Are you Henry? You're doing really well." And I had to explain to him
Oh
that
no.
I've just scratched. And I felt both like he was really kind and it was really nice. Actually, it was lovely to have someone there and to sort of like give me a little bit of a encouragement and remind me that the world isn't ending. But at the same time, he wasn't the only one who came out and was like, "You're doing really well. Are you Henry? This is great." And like you just want to sort of give people who do this and of like being are being so supportive of you and of like living your life that you don't even know about until they pop up, like something to cheer.
Yeah.
And so it's quite a sort of I guess a sort of melancholy moment to have
Oh,
to experience. But yeah,
what a tough moment. Although
yeah.
I'm really glad that
Mhm.
whatever his name is, Rob, thank you, pal, for being there at the right
Yeah.
time, because sounds like it was really helpful to have someone to just kind of bring you back to reality. I think there, as you were talking about in terms of the headspace of doing the race, being in the lead, how often you check the tracker, all of that, you kind of do have to make it the entire world.
Yeah.
So to then get to the point that you're scratching, there is a brief moment where the entire world is ending, because
Yeah.
that's you can't be in the lead unless it's your entire world to some extent. And it takes a while to bring yourself back into this other one where there are lives and jobs and loved ones, and where we mostly, I imagine, want our ankle joints to work into our 60s and 70s.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll talk about sort of next what my next steps are in a sec, but sort of like it's also really
Yeah.
weird because once you scratched, and like I know lots of ultras riders have had to deal with this in different times, but the race doesn't the riding the bike doesn't stop.
Yeah.
Like getting home is almost harder than carrying on. Like I know people, there's so many examples of people, particularly stuff like TCR, where you're in the Balkans, you want to scratch, and you're just like, actually, it's quicker to ride to the finish than it is to try and
Yeah.
get public transport anywhere. But yeah, like it took so much time and like mental energy to sort of pick yourself up and go like, okay, right, you made this decision. You need to like get moving with your life, or get moving if you actually want to. Well, my motivation was getting into a bed and a shower and all the rest of it. But
Right.
like the three different trains I needed to take, and the working out how I could sort of like get across London without cycling, and yeah, which again, like it's just part of the package. But it was like it was a long, sad day.
Yeah, there's sort of a different ultra that starts at that
Yeah.
point,
Yeah.
which
Uh,
is all about getting home.
yeah, and like what can you get away with wearing? Because there was no way I was wearing the cycling clothing I'd been wearing for 4 days without washing it on the train next to someone else. So I did the
Oh yeah.
typical having to go to a charity shop in Colne and pick out the cheapest and most garish outfit I could
Did
get
you?
away with. Yeah,
Did you get to go home in like 80s neon or something?
pretty much. I've got like an Ibiza themed like tropical t-shirt and actually a really nice pair of like blue denim shorts that actually I probably will actually keep wearing and got them for £4. So there are some
Great.
upsides. Yeah.
I think as someone who comes from an arts and storytelling
Yeah.
world, the for me that's like the cover of your indie film. That's the cover photo with the
Mm,
poster and all that
yeah.
is Henry on the train with the muddy bike and
Yeah.
bibs hanging off the handlebars,
Mm.
sat in the Ibiza t-shirt.
Yeah,
No
yeah.
explanation
There's,
for how we got
yeah,
there.
the sort of the bags under the eyes. It's like, were you in a
Yeah,
rave in a park or like or in a woods somewhere? Like, yeah,
yeah. 15 years ago, that would have been someone who hadn't slept all night because they were out
yeah.
at the club. Uh, Now it's a very different world. Okay, so you're home, you're starting to
Mm.
recover. What's the doctor said? What's recovery look like?
Yeah,
What are you
so
thinking now?
like I mentioned, like my father's an orthopedic surgeon, so he very kindly managed to organize a really quick consultation with like one of his colleagues at the local hospital, which
Hmm.
yeah. Unfortunately, like so I have really quite flat feet, and I think there's unfortunately been quite a lot of damage or sort of like damage to the posterior tendon that's what's causing this.
Okay.
That effectively like will be quite worn. And we're gonna so yeah. I firstly we had an X-ray and there was no sign of like stress fractures and stuff like that, which to be honest I never really thought there were going to be, but um.
But good to confirm.
Good to confirm, yeah. And so we booked an MRI and to just sort of check the extent of what any tendon damage. Like there was weird, like something I wasn't expecting, like at any point until it was brought up, was my father's colleague, mentioned sort of like surgery to fix flat feet, which was something
Oh,
I was like, ooh. So I'm in this sort of kind of weird space where, like, so my plans for the rest of this year was actually to have surgery on my hip for a labral tear. To sort
oh,
of fix a bit like a quite minor surgery that would I could fit into the off season and be back on my bike within 6 weeks. And like, I
right.
was always going to be like, okay, cool. I probably should have this at some point to stop, basically to stop my left hip joint being a bit wonky and like just try and fix it so there's a bit of better rotation there. So like ultimately I mentally always prepared to spend the autumn or a bit of like November, December not doing as much exercise and sort of getting that fixed. As to whether I now want to sort of like if I want to be doing some rehab on both the hip and my feet, like is something I hadn't really considered to in my sort of like what I would be doing this autumn. So yeah, like I'm gonna see what the MRI says before really making any decisions because like I don't know if you know anything about sort of like flat feet surgery, but it's a much bigger operation than sort of just fixing a labral tear on your hip. So it's sort of like again,
Okay.
I don't know that much now, but sort of like yeah, yeah, I am a bit yeah, I'm in this point where I'm like I'd like to start thinking about next year's plans and sort of like bike races and like what are some fun things I could be doing with my bike. But there's this element, this sort of black cloud at the moment that's sitting in my head going, that means I'm
So,
just unfortunately not in a position to sort of like
yeah,
do. And I think actually that's the bit I'm going to be struggling with over the next couple of weeks, I think, until like the MRI comes through. Like no one likes uncertainty,
right.
obviously, or whatever, and we all want to know what's going to happen in the future. None of us can. But it just doesn't feel particularly right now at this moment that sort of like this is something that when I quit, I wasn't really expecting.
Yeah,
And
that
yeah,
sounds especially frustrating. I think,
yeah,
some of
mm,
the account you've already given, it's hard enough to forgive yourself
mm,
for for having to pull the plug at that moment
yeah,
and kind of spend that time on the train to then get back and realize it's not just about rest and recovery for a few days, a few weeks, that there's a bigger thing going on.
yeah.
I think must be really frustrating. So we're thinking of you with that.
No, thanks. Yeah, like, it has at least given me a little bit more of a sense of like it was the right call to make, or I shouldn't beat myself up about it. Like so, I'd had the conversation with the doctor, and my father, who was working the same day in the hospital, came and saw me and chatted with it because obviously he was really interested and concerned. And we left together,
Yeah.
and he just told me like this really was the right call. Like it could have just snapped. And I don't know how dramatic he was
Oh,
being, but sort of in a sort of like I was like, yeah, which like to be honest is like quite a nasty thing to say, but like I
yeah.
at least obviously like the chance of that happening, like doctors will say that, and it's my father, so he obviously also has like wants me to not have a snap tendon, but like it at least gave me a little bit of a reassurance as to that yeah, it's something mechanically that's not really working that like we need to
Right.
sort of work with. And look, as in I've given I guess sort of like the sort of 10 out of 10, this is the worst possible like way I have to deal with it. Like there is the option that I just get some new shoes and get more supportive art structures. These are
Oh, yeah.
the shoes I've been using for the last 4 years. I didn't actually realize it until like this morning, but actually hang on, let me pick the one. Weirdly, this is my left one, so not the one's the problem, but like that's all completely, can you see that or not? That's
Oh,
all
yeah.
completely fallen apart over the course of the
Oh,
race.
so walking
So
on the outside of your heel?
yeah, so like basically, I've been riding those since about 2020. It's probably time I get them fixed and get a new pair of
Okay.
insoles done. So like, there's other stuff I can probably look at if surgery seems a bit too much for cool to be like, okay, I need to sort of like think about some physio and like really like look at other ways to fix any of or like minimize I guess pressure on that typically
Yeah.
posterior tendon, etc. Because I don't want to get up cycling. I don't want to stop doing ultras. Like it's about managing this.
Right.
Like I think you mentioned earlier, sort of like living, stuff still working into our 60s and 70s, and I just need to have a balancing act between still enjoying the things I do, but also prioritizing that because I want to keep doing this
Right.
a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it sounds like there's a little bit of an exploratory process where you might try some more minor interventions first,
yeah,
some orthotic kind of things, arch support,
yeah,
talk to the bike fitter, talk to the
mhm,
physio, talk
yeah, yeah.
to all of those people and see is it is and maybe that still leads you to some kind of surgery in the future, but at least you could try the less invasive stuff.
Yeah, quite. I think so. Like, I got my arch supports for those shoes when I bought them years ago, and kind of just sort of like left it. And I think it's one of these ones where
Okay.
you're like, oh, it's fine. Like, it made a huge difference to knee pain for me, which was something like in a way that was something like, oh, this makes such a big difference. Like everything's sorted. I've never had the knee pain again.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like one of those, oh, like then everything's still working. My shoes are fine. Everything's all right. And yeah. And so
Everything's fine.
yeah, everything's fine. Yeah, but we'll see. Like again, like there's quite a lot going on, and I don't want to sort of like over dramatize, but also didn't want to be like, oh, everything. I'm just gonna get back to training again.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I know it's probably not the most comfortable thing to share all of the details of
Yeah,
the low points of that. Um, is there anything else that I was going to prompt you to talk about there that I haven't covered?
not hugely. I mean, like it's really exciting. Like it's really fun. Just this small little community of riders. I just want to talk about.
Yeah.
It's sort of like I've never been
Yeah.
part of a race.
So
I've
I
never
was
been in
going
a
to
WhatsApp group.
I
Yeah.
was going to bring you back to
Mm.
our riders because I think did I then forget to share the timing screenshot?
I think you might have done.
Did I
Yeah,
share
yeah,
that
yeah.
earlier when we were talking about Timo? Timo
Uh,
moving into third place this morning?
I think I don't. I think we talked about it before we came on camera. Sorry to
Yeah, we
break the
talked
fourth
about this
wall.
before we
Yeah.
came on camera, and then
Mm.
I'm pretty sure I forgot to actually show
Yeah.
it. I
No.
said that Timo had moved
Mm.
in to third place, and then I got focused on Sam and Todd, who were off trying to fix their mechanical,
Yeah.
trying to get a
Mm.
replacement rim. I never got into this thing with Timo that, after I signed off with Jess yesterday,
Yeah.
she was saying to me, keep an eye on Timo, because I think he's a dark horse. He seems to be really pushing through the night and making up places. And it was this morning, this is not my screenshot, this is Jess's, saying,
Yeah.
take a look. He's had kind of the same stop time as Tom,
Yeah.
and the next closest is 25 hours from Reese. I know you mentioned to me that this may not be entirely accurate, but I think it still shows, at least by
Yeah.
degrees, how much less Timo is stopping than a lot of the others.
Yeah, definitely. Like, it's in the tracker, sort of like not like it picks up people not stopping properly pretty much equally, if that makes sense. So it's sort of like, yeah, it'll be pretty good, like tracker. And it's sort of like it's obviously like how far a gap is it from Reese to Timo right now? Like Reese is 13:49,
Reese is
12:60,
at
so it's under 100 kilometers, which is like is both quite a long distance and
yeah.
time, but things can change so quickly, right? Like all it
Well, and
takes is yeah,
If Reese has not got full braking power,
yeah,
then Timo will be making up time on every descent,
yeah.
right?
Oh yeah, I just want to touch on things, which is obviously like
Yeah, please
I
do.
I I obviously like I was leading the race, like, and the people behind me were like what would look like on the map quite a long way behind. But like the speed that everyone is going at is on what is ultimately like a very hard course is really, really fast. I just want to emphasize to everyone that sort of like who's in last place at the moment? Is it
It's Keith is
sorry,
our Lantern Rouge at
Lantern
the
Rouge?
moment,
Yeah, like
and
Ethan's
is
like
still covering
yeah,
160 Ks a day,
okay, yeah,
roughly.
which is and like what's his average moving speed? Sorry,
Uh,
yeah,
moving. I don't know if it
yeah,
shows that. It shows his current speed.
yeah, okay. But there are long sections where you're hiking bikes and you're moving at 3 4 k an hour, and like lots of other ones where you're climbing at like three like a part of my first day I was averaging my moving speed was probably like sub 15 k an hour, which is like a ludicrous thing for something which is half on road.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's sort of like everyone here is putting in a really really impressive shift, and like yeah, that's what I would have to say. And
yeah.
yeah,
It's impressive from
mm,
everybody. I think. Yeah, you're right that it would be easy to just look at that space between and think about the spread in pace, but actually, even the bringing up the rear, they're doing some incredible riding here and really pushing through quite a lot,
mm.
especially in the heat. How did you find that?
It was the mugginess more than the heat, I think, in many ways.
Okay,
That sort of like I'm quite I quite like the hot weather. Like I was carrying a lot of water as well, which definitely helped. But it's sort
okay,
of like it's weirdly so it wasn't say riding up climbs even in the sun. It was sort of there's one like big climb in Wales. It's off road.
bring you back to so your first chunk is the gap, which is all
Yeah,
walking.
no, so it's all
Then,
so
then I think,
let's kind of touch on the gap. I know we want to wrap
yeah,
up shortly, but prime example of not doing the route planning properly or like not really knowing what to expect is riding up. Like one thing I found really hard was not knowing when I really shouldn't be riding. Like so,
okay,
I was pushing my bike up the gap, going like, "This is Henry. Like you should be riding up this." And like mountain bikers and e-bikes are like flying past, and it's like, oh. And obviously it's a different bike, but like there's just a part of me there going like, "This isn't like." If you actually bought the bike more than 6 months before, or 6 weeks before, and actually like had done some training in like these conditions, you'd be able to do this. Which it's
yeah,
nice to know that everyone else pushed their bike up it, but like, it's very much a learning experience for next time.
yeah.
I think the climb I was talking about is it after Llangollen? No, hang on, that's on road.
You're saying off road
Um,
might. I'm not sure. I'm
yeah,
unfortunately not the right expert here.
no, sorry. Like, oh yeah, it's the one after Llandrillo. Sorry, like it's another sort of big hiker bike section up to the top.
Okay.
And I just remember it just the sort of like the flies, and it was cloudy but humid, and it being so slow, and that was just grim. Like it wasn't a nice weather. There was just there's a lot of sheep like
Yeah.
sheep shit everywhere. And it just was oh God, like, I just remember the flies crawling all over me, and it's just there's nothing you can really do to get away from it because you're pushing your bike up at 4K an hour,
That's
and
I
it's
feel like every bike packer
mm,
has
yeah,
that moment
mm,
of trying to, oh, I wish I could pedal faster to get
yeah,
away from the
yeah,
flies.
mm,
And it's just not possible.
yeah. That's a climb I will not be looking to do on my bicycle anytime soon again. That being said, like most of the riding in Wales, the route itself, like people have picked like I don't know how much it changes year on year. I know they make small changes to it, but
It's
it's
minor changes.
yeah.
Most of what you've seen,
Mm,
in fact, I think with the exception of one detour around some major storm damage
mm,
early in Wales, I think you've ridden exactly the same course through Wales as far as you
yeah,
scratched
yeah,
as nearly everybody else.
yeah. Like I'll yeah, like stuff like is it Flan Witted? I can't.
Oh, I don't know.
There's a town in Wales that I stopped at to get some food, and then the up to the eventually you take the off roads, the sort of like the forest roads or the forest-free tracks up by the reservoirs, etc. That is all
Oh yeah.
stunning. I did that one evening, and it was just one of those times that I was just really really happy to be on my bike and just really happy to be there.
Oh,
Yeah,
incredible.
yeah,
Uh, so thank you so much, Henry, for sharing those stories with us and getting into the highs and the lows and talking about what a wonderful ride it was, even though it was a disappointing race, I imagine. Uh, and I think there's something to celebrate even in the disappointing race because there was a great success in getting to the point that you got to. Going to bring us to a conclusion here so that we can get Henry off back to his recovery activities and so that we don't run the runtime of the video too long. Just going to do the usual weather update thing where we take a look at what we can expect from the day and days ahead. Looks like maybe we've got a little bit of a headwind today, though it seems fairly quiet right there in the divide middle bit of the country where our riders are making their way through some rather dead air.
yeah. The advantage of being surrounded by mountains, right?
I know.
It's like you got to go up and down them, but at least the wind most of the time
Yeah.
isn't the main concern.
So wind looks fairly quiet all the way into tomorrow. Let's bring this back to just now. Change our layer to rain. I don't think we're going to see any, but let's just confirm that. There's these odd little patches, but I don't think that's going to be significant. Maybe enough to wet the roads, which could be fairly slick if they get wet at this point, given how long it's been dry.
Yeah, the both the roads and the off-road, well, I'm gonna say wetter than I expected. Like going through, there were lots of sort of like
Oh, really?
places under shade which were a bit slick and like lots more puddles like in places through Wales where you kind of expect them not to be. So it
Okay.
was like I mean it wasn't that bad.
But
But yeah,
but still more standing water than we expected.
yeah.
Okay. And what have we got in terms of temperature? So we're looking at 17. Oh, I thought I had played. Looking at 17, 19. It's a lot cooler. I don't know if cool is the word for that, but a lot less warm. And
Yeah.
looks like we're maybe on the downslope of this particular heat wave. So I'm sure that will be very welcome as riders get into Scotland and keep the bright, clear air, haven't got too much wind in their faces, and have got slightly less warm days ahead. Should still get some great photos out of it. I think it's going to be some really fantastic riding for these next few days. They're at the point that I'm jealous of them. I wasn't in Cornwall or even Wales, just because I remember that all being so hard to ride. I think now that they're doing the Scottish bit, I'm going, oh, I wish I was out there with them. I went out yesterday on a training run, and there was a fairly strong headwind in my face from the south, which would be a tailwind for them, but it seems like maybe that's isolated a bit more to the west coast, and we can kind of see that the wind is calmer there in the middle of the country. So it looks like a good day of riding ahead, and we are keen to see how our riders progress. Henry, it sounds like you've been watching with interest as the thing continues and you're in R&R. I'll be watching as well. We'll look forward to an evening update before too long. I've got an extra bonus video coming talking about the section of the route ahead that Tom is nearly halfway through now, but Reese will be starting soon and the rest of our riders will get to over the next day and a half or so. So thank you again so much, Henry. Really, really appreciate you being here. Hope you've had an okay time talking to us. And yeah, thanks again for taking the time.
No, yeah, thanks very much, Alex. It's been a pleasure to talk, and yeah, happy to come on. And yeah, good luck to everyone who's still racing. And yeah, you're going to make it. I'm sure you will.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much, Henry.